Hi, welcome to Chad Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button or leaving a comment, that helps out a lot. Today, I think I'm going to do, because it's starting to seem like fall where I live here, and the leaves are starting to come off the trees. I had to harvest some apples off my little tiny apple tree, and it's feeling like fall. So I'm thinking I'm going to do something fallish. And I've always wanted to kind of do like a little acorn pendant, and so I'm going to try doing something like that. I'm not sure if I can pull this one off or not, but I did some prototyping in copper, and it seems like I'll be able to do at least the bottom part of the cup, so we'll see how that comes out. But before we get started, I'd like to thank my YouTube subscribers. You guys continue to sign up, and I love that. I'm up to 6,200 and something now. That's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the kind comments and the suggestions and the financial support that some of you have been giving me. I wanted to thank my patrons over on Patreon as well. They're paying for my premium content. I've met a lot of nice people over there, and I've learned quite a few things from them, so I hope they're learning as much from me as I am from them. But I really do appreciate their signing up for my Patreon, so thank you guys, I appreciate that. Alright, let's get started on the acorn. Sort of excited to do this one. I was doing some doming of some copper just to try it out with my dapping block and punches and my chasing hammer, and I got a little overzealous on this one. But this one also told me that I was making it, the disc I cut was a little bit too big, because I cut this one to 30 millimeter diameter, I think. So I made a smaller one after that, and I was able to get it kind of bottom of acorn shaped by tapping it with dapping punches and with a chasing hammer. So a little bit of quite a bit of work to get it into this shape. So it's a good practice for your forging skills. And I'm using kind of minimal forging tools and just a dapping block and some punches and a chasing hammer. So it's possible to do it, I think. We'll see. I'm going to do it out of silver now. Let me show you what I draw. This is my design idea book, which you can get at my merch store. Got a few things on the back burner here. Here's the acorn idea. So this is what I want it to look like when I'm done. I'm going to dome the bottom out of some 22 gauge sheet that I ran out of 22, so I took some 18 and rolled it through the rolling mill to make it a little thinner, and annealed it, and we'll make a disc out of that one to start with, and we'll dome that. I'm gonna take some 18 gauge silver, cut it into a strip, and I'm gonna cut cross hatches in it with a file and maybe with a Dremel. I'm not sure yet, and then I'll probably oxidize that to bring out the texture of it. I'm going to create a little dome piece out of 18 probably to solder to the top of that. And on the underside of it, after I finish making this one, I'm going to, I'm actually going to make this little inner kind of liner that goes inside of the lid here to specifications based on what size this comes out to. And then I'll make the top based on the size of that, because I want that to slide right down in there so this sits tightly on top of that, because I want this to be a container acorn, so you can keep a little memento in there or something. And it's going to have this probably a piece of 14 gauge or 12 gauge round if I can find some for the post that sticks up, and I'm going to leave it some room to slide up so you can open it and close it and put things inside of it. And then I'll probably just add a little triangular bail. If you haven't seen how I make these bails, I'll leave a link up there for it. It's a really standard kind of bail for me, and they're easy to make, and they look really pretty nice. So check out that video. That's a good one. So I think I'm going to start by taking my piece of silver that I made into 22 gauge, and we'll scribe a circle on it that's the first one I did was, for this one, was 30 millimeters. This one was about 22. So I think this is kind of more the size I'm shooting for the bottom there. So we'll see if I can do one out of silver without putting a hole in the bottom like that first one. That was kind of unfortunate, but I learned something. I got a little too aggressive there, so we'll do it a little more gently on this one and see what we can produce. So some little calipers here that I have set to should be 11 millimeters, I think. Yeah, about 11. And that'll give us 22 for the diameter because that's the radius then. So let's go by right there. So I just kind of scribed a little line out of that. And then I'm going to cut that out. You can use a saw if you want to for this. This is thin enough to where I can cut it with some shears though, so I'm just going to save myself a little time. Time on this one is going to be shaping this piece and probably getting everything to fit so it's snug and everything. So we're basically making a little box with a lid. Everybody asks me what these shears are. These are just little Fiskars craft shears. They aren't really intended for this, but they work pretty well for thinner sheet, and I push it up to 18 a lot, and they tend to wear out. I killed a pair after about 2 years, so I got my money's worth out of it, I think. Let's file this down so it's a little smoother. There's going to be a lot of repetitive pounding on this thing, so I'm probably going to cut some of it out to save, so you don't want to watch me pound for a full half hour on this thing or something, because it may take some multiple times of pounding it to get it to the shape I want. When you pound on silver, or when you bend it back and forth, or any of that kind of thing where it works the metal, it work hardens it, which means it gets stiffer and stiffer and harder to work as you go. And periodically, if you heat it up to the point where it's kind of almost a dull red color, keep it at that temperature for a little bit, and then let it cool off. That softens the metal back up. It's called annealing. I'm going to start with this one. I have a couple of different dabbing blades here. We'll just start like there. We'll use a big one to start. So I'm probably going to be turning the sound down on this too, because it's going to be pretty loud. So periodically, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go back and I'll anneal this to re-soften it, because while I'm doing this, it's making it harder and harder. So I'm going to go down one just a little bit to see if we can. This one I don't just have to get it into a dome shape, I have to get it into kind of an elongated shape. Since I don't have forging stakes, I don't have very good surfaces to come up with a good curve on, so I can leave these in here and start bending this edge up to a more vertical shape. Probably should anneal it a little bit. Another way you can use this is hardwood, so I can generally get by with doing this a little bit too. This would be in the part of the process of elongating a little bit. Use a smaller punch, it's going to start to elongate it a little bit. I also sometimes use my chasing hammer to put a little sharper hit. See, it's starting to get kind of a more of a cone-ish sort of shape there. I'm going to try and push this down just a little narrower. Last little bit I was kind of using a smaller one to try and dome that downwards into more of a point. It's starting to get pretty close where I want it to be. It's a little bit bigger yet. I'm going to try and get the top of it just a little bit narrower if I can. Alright, I think that looks like an acorn's bottom, sort of. Let's see if I can do the top now. Got this pretty much made. It's not as deep as the other one, but that's okay. I think you're close to this one. Yeah, this one's a little bit more elongated. That's alright. I don't want to risk punching a hole through the bottom of that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and make I made an executive decision while I was taking a little break. I was going to put this inner lip on the top part, but I think I'm going to put it in here, and I cut a little piece of 26 gauge that fits in there. And I think what I'll do is I'll solder it into the bottom here, and that'll make it pretty easy to get the top the right size to fit, you know. If you haven't seen one of my videos before, I use hard silver sheet solder and a spray-on flux called My-T-Flux. One of the other things you'll see is that I use pick soldering, which is a really efficient way to put a specific amount of solder in a particular place. And it's one of those things that I think is an important skill if you want to get good at this. So I would recommend check. I'll put a link to my video on pick soldering up there. It's a good skill to master. Just pick up a little bit of solder. Each piece. Once it reaches that temperature, you should be able to just kind of plop it right there. And solder it together. That looks about right. I'm going to see if I can solder that in there. Just going to kind of file that, try to get that even. Got a little crack there. See if I can fix that. This is a piece of that 26 gauge sheet. I'm going to fix this little crack here. I can jam that in there. And I'm just going to pick solder that in there, and then I'll just trim off the excess, and that should fix that crack for us. That one really goes when you spray it. It's because it's sort of egg-shaped, I guess. I'm just going to use the Dremel real quick to smooth that out and even it. Okay, you should be able to see that it doesn't have a crack anymore there. Alright, so I need to figure out a piece of 18 gauge to fit on there perfectly. And so I think I'm going to make it a little bit too small. And then we'll stretch it on the ring mandrel to make it gradually bigger until it fits perfectly. So let me use a piece of paper. I marked that side because knowing me, I would use this side to measure the piece, but I think that's going to get us pretty close. Okay, so it goes to right here, roughly. How wide do we want this to be? So the one I drew is about 3 millimeters. I'm going to make it about 4. I can always thin it out if I want to. I thought about using some pattern wire for this. I have this kind of crosshatch looking pattern wire, and I could have cut this in half or something and used it, and that might have worked pretty well. So if you don't want to do what I'm going to do where I'm doing the filing cross-hatching, you could get by with something like that probably. Well, it's curved like this. Let's see how close it is. That's a little big. Now it's a little bit too small, and that's where I wanted it, so that I have to stretch it a little bit to get it just snug on there. So I'm going to flatten this back out, and I'm going to lay out the pattern on it, and then I'm going to do some filing. So I'm going to color it purple so I can scribe the lines easily and make them pretty visible. Not perfect, but that's alright. Okay. I'm going to cross-hatch them. do this, I'm going to probably do this on my bench pin, but I'm going to start with the edge of the needle file here and get a notch started on each of these. Which I'll probably then continue either with the bastard file or the Dremel. That's funny. Alright, this is going to take a little while, so I'm not going to make you watch me, so stay tuned. Okay, I got that kind of cross-hatched. So let's solder the ends of this together. I'm going to solder it from the inside with the idea that I don't want a huge amount of solder flowing to the outside. Although I can just cut it back in with the file if I need to. I flipped it on its side and pointed the heat from the outside in order to draw the solder through the solder seam. File off the excess solder in here. That's pretty close. I'm actually not going to stretch it anymore. I'm going to go clean it up slightly with the Dremel on the inside because that'll remove a little material as well. And I don't want to get it so that it's loose, so I'll be right back. That's how I want it, kind of, is tight. Okay, so I think what I want to do next, I'm going to file this, make sure it's nice and flat on both sides. Okay, I did a little thinking off camera, and I want to make a domed top on this here, for this little top of the acorn. But I want it to, since this is going to be domed slightly, I made it a little bit bigger, probably about 1 millimeter on either side. And but I wanted to have a texture too, and I didn't want to have to cross hatch this all the way because I kind of wanted it to stem from the center of this. And so I was thinking, I did a little test thing on some copper. Where did I put that? Using the X stamp that I have. And I think if I start at the center and work my way outwards, that'll be kind of a cool pattern, and then I can kind of merge it with this. We'll see. I'll progressively go outwards from the center. So I need to remember to remind myself to do this kind of slowly. See, I kind of wanted it to kind of go out from the center. So that's basically what I was trying to achieve there. Something else I'm going to need to do is drill a hole through the center. I'm going to go, this is probably pretty work hardened from doing all that stamping. So I'm going to soften it up a little bit because we're going to have to dome it. I'm quite pleased with how that came out. That looks pretty good. I wasn't sure how it was going to look. Okay, so I domed this after I textured it and I drilled a hole in it. Well, actually, I did that in the opposite order. I didn't quite get it in the center, but I think that's all right. And then I domed it until it was pretty close to that, and then I filed this until it was almost exact. So I think I'm going to solder those two together now. You can get it to stay up there probably okay. And then I'll just pick a little bit on the inside. See how it looks here. It's going to look like an acorn, I think. Right. So, I think, okay, let's see. This is 14 gauge round that I made a little loop of at the end. How far down we want it to hang. I don't think it needs to hang that far, probably. I think that's good enough. That allows you access to it, so you can put something in there, and then you can close it up. So, alright. I think the final fitting I can do after I have this soldered together. So, I think what I'm going to do is sweat a little solder to the end of this piece, and then we'll feed it through there, and I'll try and get it to solder right on there. Maybe we could do it upside down. So it'll just, well, that might be hard to get it to sit just right. Alternate way I could have done it is soldered this loop closed afterwards and just kept it a straight wire and put it on there. That might have been a better idea, but let's see. Let's put a little solder on here and see if we can make it work. I use this just to keep it from moving around on me. So I should be able to heat that like that. And just plunk it down there. So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to double check that, and then I'm going to put that bail on off camera to save time. If you want to see how to do that, I already made a link for the video. So next time you see me, we'll have this cleaned up and we can take a look at it. So I polished everything up. I think it turned out pretty cool. It's tight, so you gotta kind of work to get it open. I probably could clean it up a little better inside, but overall, I'm really very pleased with it. Looks like an acorn. Looks like what I was thinking of. The thing that I'm most pleased about is the texture on the top, made out of the X's, my little X stamp. That turned out looking really good, so I'm pleased with that. So I'm going to take some better pictures, put them at the end, and we'll call it a day. So. Okay, well that was a fun project. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I learned some things from it, especially about forging, and I hope you got as much out of it as I did. So if you did, make sure to hit the like button and leave a comment. Let me know what you'd like to see, constructive criticism, any of that kind of stuff is great. Also, if you want to find out different ways you can support the channel, check out the video description down below. There's a link to my Patreon site, there's a link to my Buy Me a Coffee site, to my website, and also to my merch store. So check those things out. Buy me a coffee if you want to, and come back and watch some other videos. So take care. Thanks for coming. Happy silversmithing.